Hello, Garland Nixon here, and we're going to chat a little bit on a Sunday evening. And by we, I mean me. And I was just thinking of an analogy with Building 7, considering what's going on economically in the US and the EU. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here, and hope everybody, my sound's good. I hope it is. Everybody in the chat, let me know if my sound's good. What I'm going to talk about a little bit is this economic calamity going on in the West. And this is going to be one of those videos, it's like I do the videos to interview somebody. Sometimes it's like something important. And sometimes, I hate to say it, it's just for me, So this video is just like sometimes I sit around and I just think out loud and I just ramble. And I think that's where I am right now. I'm thinking out loud and rambling. So let me go. Let me start. Um, why did I use Building 7? Well, I don't know. I'll be honest with you, I don't really know, but I just felt like saying we're getting Building 7. I guess because the official story doesn't make any sense, right? And I feel like we're the same way with these tariffs and this other stuff. And Nordstream, I could say we're getting Nord Streamed. The official story doesn't make sense. And everybody that looks at it, it's like the official story is the Russians blew up their own pipeline, and everybody's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, really?" And the Russians are like, "Really? Oh, okay. Oh, Nord Stream. Would you believe it? There was a bunch of Ukrainians on a friggin' sailboat, and they just happened to have like a hyperbaric chamber with them, and they toted around thousands of feet, thousands of pounds of munitions, and they dove for like hours doing something that only really a major country could do, and then they sailed the old sailboat back in, and nobody ever knew. But not unbelievable, right? And people were like, the official story makes no sense, and we kind of know what happened here, right? It's like, okay, at times when you have a story like that, oftentimes I'll think to myself, they really want us to know, right? It's like they really want to say, yeah, we did it. And we're going to give you a story so hokey that we did it. So we can't come out and say we did it. We're not going to go that far, but in a way we are by giving you a story so hokey and absurd that we did it. And that way, you'll always know that we have the raw power to do it anytime we want, and that we control the media. So we can have the raw power to do it. For instance, I don't know, shoot a president, and then we can control we can control the news afterwards. We can control the investigation, say the Warren Committee, and so we can do whatever we want with raw power. And afterwards, there's nothing you can do. And like we'll kind of grin at you and go, "We didn't do it." Wink, we did, and we can do it again. So shut up and take it. That's kind of the way I feel more often than not with these types of things. And 9/11, I feel that Building 7, okay, two buildings fell ostensibly from getting hit by planes, right? Whatever. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, they didn't. And then another building nearby just happened to fall too, right? Hey, what happened? These two buildings fell. Okay, fair enough. What about that building? Yeah, I guess it felt like, I don't know, lonely. It felt a camaraderie. Maybe it was grief, like an old couples, they've been married for 70 years and then the husband dies, and then 2 months later the wife dies. And everybody's like, yeah, I guess she died of grief. I guess that's what happened with Building 7. It had been standing around by those other buildings, looking at them for like forever, like, hey, what's happening, bros? And the buildings were like, all good. And then Building 7 woke up one day and it's like, oh shit, oh no, my buddy's died. I just don't want to live anymore. And it collapsed. I mean, I put it like this. That makes as much sense as the story they've given us. If we actually like make the buildings living creatures and say that the buildings just died of grief or something, makes as much sense. In fact, it makes more sense. So let's go from the Building 7 in that analogy to where I'm going here. Okay. I'm going to push back on guys like Professor Wolf, who I know and love. He's a great guy, doing the best he can, and I admire him greatly. And I'm not even going to pretend that I have the knowledge, economic knowledge that he does. Michael Hudson, I listen to those guys and I say they're brilliant, but they miss something. Here's what they miss. I listen to Michael Hudson, or I listen to uh, Richard Wolff, and they start off with this. You see, what Trump doesn't understand is, and then they'll go to all of the reasons why his diabolical plan to sanction everybody in the world, not sanction, excuse me, tariff everybody in the world and force industry back, and this is going to happen. You know what I mean? Um, ain't going to work. It's kind of like the neocons, right? When the neocons say we're going to take over Iraq and they're going to welcome us. You know, we're going to overthrow country X, and the people there are going to welcome us, and then they're going to love us, and then they're going to overthrow the government. We'll put in a compliant government, and we'll get all the oil, right? And people are like, the neocons are so stupid. That's not going to happen. Now you're the stupid ones if you think they really mean it. Your problem is believing what they tell you. The neocons are not actually saying we're going to overthrow country X, be it Iraq or Libya, and as a result, these following things are going to happen. And then you're like, how could they be so stupid? They're not going to happen. A, they ain't that stupid. They're evil, and they don't care if it happens. It's just a narrative. They can't just say we're going to overthrow Iraq or Libya or Syria or whatever, and who give a shit what happens after that? The more chaotic, the better. It'll be all screwed up. They can't just come out and say that prior, because they have to look. The concept is called liberal intervention. Liberal intervention is simply, we're going to do this for a morally superior reason. We're standing up, and then there'll be a democracy, and the people will be better, and all that. It's not true. The problem is, if you're arguing based on whether or not what they predict is going to happen is going to happen, that means you believe that they're telling you the truth. So as they were saying during the Iraq War, to go back in that 9/11 time, and this is all going to lead me here. So what were they saying during that time? Oh, we're gonna. Saddam is doing this. He's mistreating the people, and he's using weapons of mass destruction. He's threatening us. He's doing all kinds of things. He could have a nuclear program. On and on. I mean, they gave us 10 different reasons why we should invade Iraq, which meant that none of them were the right reason. And people argued those reasons. Well, what difference does it make if they have weapons of mass destruction? Other countries have them. That wasn't the reason. You're wasting your time. Well, what difference does it make whether or not other countries aren't democracies and other people mistreat them? That wasn't the reason. They wanted you to argue about the things they were giving you. Think about this. At the same time, they were giving us a flock of reasons, a different reason every day, why they were going to, they had to invade Iraq to install a liberal democracy. At the same time, they were giving us a gaggle of reasons why they were going to do it. General Wesley Clark went to the Pentagon. You may remember this story. And when he got there, they said, here's a piece of paper. Here's 7 countries they're going to invade in the next 5 years, with ending up in Iran, right? So at the same time that you were arguing over whether or not their bullcrap reason for invading Iraq was valid, or whether what they was telling you would work or it wouldn't work, they were cooking up the next lie to invade Syria, and the next lie to invade Libya, and the next lie to invade Iran, and the next Sudan, right? So they leave you in the dust with a lie, and you argue over a lie, and they just like, okay, what's the lie going to be? Well, we got to overthrow this country because I don't know, because they don't like chocolate bunnies on Easter. Fair enough. There you go. And you're over there arguing, well, chocolate bunnies are delicious. I think they like them. Maybe they just never tried chocolate bunnies, and chocolate's good. It's wonderful for you. What about cacao? They say it grows stem cells, and you're over there arguing about the validity of chocolate bunnies, and you're busy. All right, there you go. Argue about your chocolate bunnies. Now that we're going to invade this other country, what kind of reason do you? Let's say, I don't know, they do like chocolate bunnies. Great. You're still arguing over whether they like chocolate bunnies in the first country they're going to invade. And now they argue we got to invade the other country because they don't like chocolate bunnies. And then you say, hey, But the last country you said they did, and this said, well, they didn't. And you're like, and they're like, yeah, that's even worse. Oh my God. Over you go to argue about this new country over here about whether they do like chocolate bunnies or they don't. You can't remember because one did and one didn't. Why? Because it was busy work for you. Because you made the grotesque error of arguing over the thing they gave you, the narrative, the story they gave you to argue. I've said this about COVID. That was the plan. What happens? They made it come out in Wuhan, and you're like, I got them. They lied to us. They said it was wild from a wet market, but 11 miles from the wet market was Wuhan's Institute of Virology. Ha ha ha. They thought they fooled me, but I really got them from Wuhan's Institute of Virology. I got them. I caught them in the lie. COVID came from Wuhan's Institute of Virology. And after a while, they were like, okay, you got us. That's where it came from. And I did an investigation, if you look at my Substack. And I'm like, it didn't come from Wuhan's Institute of Virology. It came from Fort Detrick. And all just a minor investigation I did. Me, just one of the things I could find online. And I'm like, holy crap, it's all there right online. Fort Detrick mysteriously closed down in June. That's kind of weird. Oh, wait a minute. 2 weeks later, a mysterious virus show pops up. A short drive from Fort Detrick and two senior citizens home, and it spreads like wildfire and kills a bunch of people, kind of like COVID. I'm like, hey, it came from Fort Detrick. The evidence is there. Why? They gave you busy work. They left you over here arguing about Wuhan, and it was right here at Fort Detrick, and the evidence was there because they knew if you started looking into Fort Detrick, you'd find out real quick where it came from. Because all you got to do is start clicking around and looking for the evidence, and it's obvious, right? Now, here's my point. Okay, so Dr. Richard Wolff, who, God, I think is great. Mike Hudson, absolute brilliant. These guys are brilliant. But what do they say? They argue over chocolate bunnies. Trump says, hey, effectively, I'm going to tariff everybody, all the countries in the world. Why? Because they don't like chocolate bunnies. And in comes Professor Richard Wolff. Well, that's absurd. In comes Michael Hudson. In comes all the greatest minds, Jeffrey Sachs, all John Mearsheimer, all the greatest minds come in. But they're arguing over, effectively, chocolate bunnies. Well, Trump said, which is when Trump said, you're going in the wrong direction. But what do they effectively say? Hey, doesn't Trump know that these countries do like chocolate bunnies? Some of these countries actually make chocolate bunnies. What do you have to say, Jeffrey Sachs? Well, it's absurd. Doesn't Trump understand that it's going to destroy our economy and kill the dollar, and it's not even going to do anything to help chocolate bunnies because they're an inanimate object? Why are we trying to save chocolate bunnies anyway? They can't hop around. They were made to be eaten. Bite their ears off first. Love those chocolate bunnies. But Trump is embarking on this worldwide Save the Chocolate Bunnies program. It's absurd. It ain't about chocolate bunnies, dude. And this is not about rebuilding the industrial crap of America. Think about it. Trump ain't by himself. There are people around there, and there are masters above Trump that are telling him what to do. Now, I'm just a schmuck, a schlemiel, a putz, dare I say. And I'm sitting here. I don't need Dr. Jeffrey Sachs and John Mearsheimer and Michael Hudson and all these other guys who I respect greatly, who are brilliant men. But I don't need them. Think about this. You, me, everybody in the chat, Myra, dear Myra, Michael McGoldrick, and dare I say the leader of this channel, Chicken Patty. We can look at this and say, so we're going to rebuild the industrial stuff here. But if we all turn our air conditioners on a given Friday in August, we'll get blackouts because our infrastructure can't handle a bunch of frickin' air conditioners on a Friday in August. But we're supposed to believe that they're going to bring back 90,000 factories and our economic infrastructure will handle them just fine. We don't have the ports. We don't have the rail. Our rail was built in the 1800s. Come on. So here's the reality. We can sit down and look at this great, beautiful plan to bring back industry to the United States like it was before. And we can say, it ain't going to work. As the old, you heard me say many times, I used to love this cartoon when I was a kid called Gulliver's Travels. And every week something terrible was going to happen. There was some threat to the Lilliputians. Governor, they had, and Gulliver was there, and they had to have a plan to save themselves. And they come up with a plan. We're going to do this, this, this. And there was a little guy, we'll call him Garland Nixon. We'll give him the name. There was I don't know what, now I know why I associated with that guy. Why I really connected with the guy. But he only had one line every week. And when they came up with it, and they said, we're going to do this, then we'll do that, then we'll do this, and we'll stop the evil invaders. And his line was this: it'll never work. We're all doomed. That was it. And I used to always say, I don't know why I like that guy. I think I know why now. I think I figured it out over the course of time. I think I became him. I think he was my alter ego before I was even young enough to know old enough to know what an alter ego was. But the bottom line is this: it'll never work. We're all doomed. There we go. That's what I should name my channel. Hey, hello, and welcome to It'll Never Work. We're all doomed. I think that's a great channel name. Maybe I'll change it. Anyway, let's continue. So, what if, for the sake of argument, we look at it and say, Building 7 made no sense. These two buildings fall, and another building nearby just happens to fall. Hey, wham! All right. Well, those buildings have fallen. What are we going to do? Hey, look at that building over there. It's not doing anything. It's just sitting there. Okay. And it just collapsed. Did it get hit by a plane? Nah. An earthquake, maybe? No. It just fell. Like buildings do every now and then. Yeah, you're walking down the street, you're looking at a building. Hey, look at that. It's a beautiful building. I'm writing on the side. Wham! Down it drops. Happens every day to me. I don't know about you. But the bottom line is, so what happens? If we stop arguing about chocolate bunnies per se and stop arguing that, and so Trump, here's what I mean. The Trump clan, his group of people, the Trump gang, right, has said, look, we're doing this to bring industry back. And we all looked at it and we examined this thing and said, well, that ain't an option. It's not really going to work. And even if it did, it wouldn't work. All the reasons they give us, right? Well, labor would be too expensive in America and the products that we made wouldn't be competitive, right? I mean, think about this. One of the things they're saying right now is iPhones, you can buy them for $1,000, right? Let's just say. If they were made in the US, they'd cost $35,000. Okay? If we can figure this out, I think the owners, and as Shahid Bolson always calls them, the owners and controllers of global cap of what is it, the OGCFC, the owners and controllers of global finance capital, right? If we can figure out that you can't sell iPhones for 35,000, I'm betting that they've sat around tables and thought, "What do you think about these iPhones for 35,000?" I don't know. I think they'll go, "Nah." I don't think we can sell them for the cost of a car. I think they figured that out. So what if we do this? What if we suddenly say, I don't think Trump was telling us the truth. I don't think that's the real reason. Or effectively the same thing, I don't think whoever instructed him to do that or let it happen or push for it was telling him the truth. The bottom line is, here's what I'm saying. Trump may believe it. I don't think he does, but it's possible. But when you run backwards up this policy and you find out that who it was actually behind this, right? They ain't stupid. And they know good and damn well, just as well as you and I know, that buildings don't just drop because another building in the area, a couple of buildings in the area dropped. Another building doesn't just happen to drop. Doesn't work like that. It's not kind of the way physics works, right? And they also know good and damn well that you can't sell an iPhone for $35,000, which means they know that this is not going to work. They got people like Michael Hudson and Richard Wolff, all around them. Smart people crunching the numbers by the thousands. How much would it cost? Do this. They know good and damn well that just uh, I keep thinking sanctioning. I got sanctions on my brain because tariffs is a word we haven't heard. There's no association yet. That just throwing tariffs in every direction is not going to be like, okay, if we do this, corporations will come home and everybody will get hired. No, they know. So you're going to have a bunch of corporations, right? And they're going to buy all of these new machines from where? China. So they got to buy machines from China at a 200% tariffs or something. So it wouldn't even be feasible for corporations to set up shop here because they'd have to buy all of their equipment, all their computers, all the parts of the companies that are going to make the things, the giant machines. They'd have to buy all that from China, but it would be sanctioned. So it would cost twice what it would cost the Chinese factories. So now they couldn't compete with the Chinese factories. Dare I say, the Chinese factories wouldn't sell it to them anyway. Dare I say the Chinese factories would say, you sons of bitch, you're trying to screw us over, take all of our business, sanction us to hell, and you think we're going to sell you those? That's not going to happen. So, A, they would be overpriced if we was buying the equipment to build the corporations, and B, Chinese probably wouldn't sell it to us anyway. And C, might I add, where we're getting a lot of these raw materials and a lot of things that we would need, and aluminum and steel. Well, how much steel do we got? So we're going to have all this stuff we got to buy from Russia and China. In order to make it happen, a lot of raw materials we'd get would be from Russia and China. So here's the bottom line of that. They know it ain't going to work. And somebody has Ritter believes in the pancake theory. Look, I don't know why people are obsessed with Scott Ritter. Scott Ritter's my friend. Scott Ritter and I don't agree on everything. I defend his right to say what he says, whether I agree with it or not, and he's still going to be my friend. If he says something I don't agree with, that's fine. I kind of thought that the strength of alternative media was that we sat down with alternative thoughts and we ironed them out. I don't even understand people so-called in alternative media anymore. It's like, hey, Scott Ritter saying something we don't agree with. Let's cancel him. Just like, let's censor Scott Ritter. He's saying things we don't agree with. We're against that in COVID. We're against that with Ukraine. We're against that when it comes to Israel, but we're going to do it ourselves by saying if Scott Ritter suddenly takes a position on something that we disagree with, that we got to cancel him. I don't understand it. The great thing about shows like mine and Danny Haiphong had Scott Ritter. I'm just going to throw this. Danny Haiphong had Scott Ritter the other day and Mohammed Marandi. Right now, I have a friend of mine who's like, did you hear that Scott and Marandi were on there? I'm like, that's why I love alternative media. Neither one of those people could get on CNN or MSNBC or Fox, and they're both on Danny Haiphong's show, having a fantastic debate. And Scott is man enough to say, I'm taking a position and I'm standing by my position and I'm willing to sit down and debate with anybody. Do you remember RFK Jr.? RFK Jr. went on Jimmy Dore. Give him credit for that. And afterwards, Max Blumenthal said, hey, I disagree with you. Let's sit down and have a debate. And RFK Jr. wouldn't do it, couldn't do it. That's the problem I have. So Scott Ritter's taking a position. Most things we agree with. Now, some of his position I disagree with. He's man enough to go sit down with anybody and have a talk. That I respect. I don't respect people who take a position and won't sit down and they'll run and hide. Scott's a man. He's a man. He ain't a chump. He's a man. And when he believes something, you don't have to believe it, but he will go and he will debate anyone. And I got a lot of respect for that man. And I love Danny Haiphong for bringing those guys on. And I love Mohammed, what's his name? Dr. Marandi for coming on. If only we could get that in the mainstream media. So anybody out there, well, I'm mad at Scott Ritter. God forbid, he believes something that I don't agree with. You need to go back to Fox. You need to go back to, if you're mad at Scott Ritter because he believes something that you don't believe in, go back to MSNBC or CNN and Fox, and you won't have to worry about that anymore. Boom, you'll only get one side of the view. And you know what? I may come up and say something that you don't agree with. And then next thing you know, oh, I'm just unsubscribing from Garland's channel because I'm supposed to agree with everything he says. No. I've had people say, why should I trust you, Garland? You're a retired police officer. My answer is, you shouldn't. Trust yourself. Do your own research. Why the hell should you trust me? I could be a CIA spy for all you know. So anyway, let me continue. Let me continue. But I did want to touch base on that because I saw Ritter's name. I don't even know what the guy said. Probably, I'm sure it was nothing bad. But my point being is, when I saw Ritter's name, I'm seeing all of these people out there. Can you believe what Scott Ritter's saying? Why did everybody have to believe it? I support his right to say it, and I respect the man who will sit down with Dr. Morandi and say, well, this is what I think, Dr. Morandi. And Dr. Morandi then says, hey, well, I think you're wrong for this reason. Man, those are guys right there that I'm on par with those guys. That's the kind of people I stand for. People that got the balls and the guts to stand up and say what they believe and to sit down. And that's how we learn. That's how we get better. Not how we get worse is expecting people to agree with us on every little thing. And then as soon as we find somebody that disagrees with us on something, we hit the ceiling. Sorry, I ain't there. Let me continue. All right. So my point is this. It goes back to this. It's obvious that the people who are behind this, and I don't think it's Trump, to be quite frank, know what they're doing. And here's my evidence. Does anybody think for 1 second that the people who blew the hell out of Nordstream didn't know that it was going to have devastating economic effects, not just on Germany, but all across the EU? It was going to dramatically raise the prices. In 2016, I saw a video. You may be able to find it. I don't know the name of it. It was Condoleezza Rice. And Condoleezza Rice was talking then about getting the EU off of Russian fossil fuels and saying basically what she said was, sooner or later they're going to have to deal with it. Meaning at some point they're screwed. I know, that's their model. That's how they make money. That's how they have a nice standard of living. But we don't give a shit. They are going to have to suffer because we don't want it to happen, and screw them. They threw the people under the bus. Biden did it. What did the German government do? We don't know anything about it. I haven't seen it. They helped him. Oh, how about this? How about this? You might have seen this book before. Ally versus Ally. America, Europe, and the Siberian Pipeline Crisis by Anthony J. Blinken. He wrote this in the 1980s, where he was basically saying, and he in there, where he said, well, what he said right in there was, and this is relative to today. Look, there are people that see the issue of Russian, back then it was oil, pipeline, Siberian pipeline, pumping oil to Russia. And in fact, it was coming from the Soviet Union. He was saying there are people that see that as an economic issue. To them, it is. But we see it as a geopolitical issue. So at some point, screw them. Yes, it is an economic issue. Yes, it is their economic lifeline. I'm adding this part, but we don't care. Don't just have to be impoverished. What we're finding is, what I'm trying to tell you is, wake up. The U.S. government, the neocons, the ruling elite, deliberately, with malice and a forethought, attacked the infrastructure, not just of Germany, but of Europe. The fossil fuel infrastructure, the energy infrastructure of Europe, deliberately impoverishing 500 million people, getting rid of, destroying their lives. The people of Germany at some point won't be able to afford a decent schnitzel. And why? Because they wanted to separate them. It was ideological to them. We got to separate them from, their lives will be hell. Who cares? Their country will fall into disarray. People will be running in every direction like a friggin' zombie apocalypse. But what do we care? Screw them. We don't want them connected to the Russians because that would not benefit the way we want to see the world set up. We got a particular way we want the world set up, and the people of Europe are going to have to suffer. Now, here's my question. They did it to Europe. You think they won't do it to us? You think the Biden administration and whoever's behind, you think it was Joe Biden that made that decision? You don't think it was the ruling elite that controlled both? Joe Biden couldn't make the man couldn't make a decision of when to go to the bathroom. He kept getting it wrong, if you know what I mean. The man soiled himself every day, Have you seen Joe Biden since the election? No, you haven't. You know why? I don't think Joe Biden is compass mentis enough to make a statement in public. I don't think he could do it before the election. He's done, which means he didn't make those decisions. In fact, as I said, Tony Blinken said it before him. Condoleezza Rice said it before him. The decision was made to impoverish Europe. It was just a matter of when. And when was 2022. That's when they decided. And guess what? Europe is screwed. Europe's going to be a economic hellhole. That's the direction it's going. Now, here's my point. You think they care any more about the American people? They don't. Europe first, America second. So what did they decide? I think that a decision has been made for one, that where all the young what's the youngest continent? What is the youngest continent on earth? Africa. What's old? I don't know if you've been paying attention, but Europe's getting older. A lot of Europeans were born what after the war, the baby boomers. Same with the U.S. And now what's happened to the baby boomers? They're getting old, right? Baby boomers are 50, 60, 70 years old. And what do they need? They got bad backs, their prostate shot, their eyes are done, they got breast cancer. You know what I mean? They need money. They can't produce money. They're not producers of capital. They need the government to come in and help them survive now. They need Social Security and pensions. They need health care. So now they're in need of the ruling elite. Since they gave all of these years of hard work, they need the ruling elite to come in and take care of them. And that ain't the way it works. It only works one way. You are basically fuel for the ruling elite to heat their private, their mansions. You're to be burned like cordwood. And now, your usefulness is worn out. America, America's getting old, real old. Japan's getting old, real old. Your usefulness has worn out. Africa, Latin America, they call them, there's a reason they call them the developing nations and the emerging. Why? Because they're going to move the focus to there, because that's where money can be made, that's where capital can be raised. Everything's going to blowing up there. And that's why they're mad at China and Russia, because China and Russia were over there, and China and Russia was way ahead of them. And they locked China and Russia out of the West anyway. So China and Russia's like, okay, well, we'll work in where we can work. We'll work the side of the street where we can get something done, where we can build and where we can sell and where we can do things. And now they woke up and said, yeah, these Americans are old. They got bad backs. They need glasses, dentures. We ain't providing that crap for them. So what are they going to do? Number one, they're going to collapse the U.S. economy. They're going to move it. This is not an accident. Building 7, for whatever reason, needed to go down. For whatever reason, I find it hard to believe that it just sympathetically dropped. For whatever reason, building 7 dropped. That was the buildings that were supposed to drop. That one dropped. I don't know. I have no idea. All I can say is I don't believe the official story. I'm not going to argue about the official story because I don't believe it. And I'm not going to argue about Trump's official story because of that. This is done to think about it. It's done to bring industry back. Get out of here. We know it won't. Everybody. And whenever you listen to the experts, what's the first thing they say? Trump doesn't understand. This is wrong. It won't work. What happened if we change that and say, well, Trump may not understand, but whoever institutes these policies understands it won't work? What if we start by saying, whatever politician tells me, I don't believe him. So when the politicians finally come out and when the politicians said, COVID is a natural virus, it just happened to appear. Somebody ate a bat. I didn't believe it. When they said, okay, you got us. It came from Wuhan virus lab. I said, I don't believe it. So I started looking on my own. I'm like, holy crap, it came out of Fort Detrick. Okay. And as I said, you can go to my Substack and look up COVID origins, right? And you'll watch it and you tell me that you don't come to the same conclusion, right? Somebody says, not blame the boomers. Well, bad news. It's not that they blame the boomers. It's that they see us as assets or liabilities. And now the owners and controllers of global financialized capital are looking at the boomers and saying they're too old to be of a value anymore. They're a liability, not an asset. They need society to help them. They need Medicare and Social Security. They need things to help them get around. They need wheelchair access because they're in a wheelchair. They're using a little, they need stuff. They don't want liabilities. They want assets. And so they're not going to provide help for someone who can't do anything for them. Sorry, we're going to Africa. There's lots of young people there. We'll use that labor. We'll make lots of money. That's the way they see it, right? So my point being, um, if you understand that this is deliberate, then you can have a discussion. As soon as you understand, as soon as you stop going down that rabbit hole of don't they understand, they're misunderstanding, their plan won't work, and you start saying, okay, they're lying and their plan will work. Now, what kind of plan would work? Let's start here. One argument I could see is that they're decoupling from China. That this whole thing was we want to decouple from China, but how do we do it? Because if we just say to the America, we want to Nordstream the American people, right? We want to blow up the economy, screw them. We don't care anyway because they're old and they need help. So who gives a rat's ass about that? So we want to decouple completely from China. Maybe they want to go to war with China. They want to blow. They want to try to do whatever they want to do to China. But for whatever reason, first, we want to decouple from China, right? So what do? Well, we can't just completely economically decouple from China. I know what we'll do. I know what we'll do. We'll put sanctions, tariffs on everybody in the world, and then we'll drop all of the ones except China. And we'll say China's being me, right? So what do? Sanctions on everybody. Everybody gets sanctions. And then when like as if they couldn't predict an economic collapse, as if they're like, okay, sanctions on everybody. The economy collapsed. They oh look at the markets, they're all going down. Who could have ever predicted that? Who couldn't have predicted that? Who couldn't have predicted that? Especially the fact that they got economists who are sitting around with typing, running algorithms, doing everything they could. Yes, they predicted that. They knew it was going to happen. So they said, all right, we'll do this. Wham, everything drops. Then we come back and say, oh my God, we didn't see that. Oh, let's get rid of all the sanctions. Hey, China pushed back. Darn you, China. We got to stand up and fight against those evil commies. Let's do this, right? Okay. What if we go with intent? That was the plan all along. If I want to understand your plan, all I got to do is look at what you're doing, right? If I want to understand your plan, all I got to do is look at the outcome and saying the outcome wasn't an accident. The outcome was the intent. So what was the outcome? You first put sanctions on everybody. You know, unless you're a moron, but you are not, you know at that point, the markets are going to crash. And that will give you your excuse to draw them all back in. And now you yank them all back in, except China, because that was the target in the first place. It was all about that and decoupling from China. Now, what do people say then? Yeah, but that will destroy our economy. We can't have decoupling from China. So here's my point. If they knew the markets were going to crash and they game for that, we'll do this and then the markets are going to crash. Then China will get in a trade war with China. We know they'll fight back. All those things were gamed out. Don't you think the next part was gamed out? Don't you think they could figure out what would happen if we decouple from China? That was the intent, was to decouple from China, which means decoupling from China is going to smash our economy to pieces. That means that the intent was to smash our economy to pieces. Dare I go back to Nordstream? When they did this to Nordstream, not only did they know that it was going to smash the economy and obliterate the economy of the EU, they did it specifically to obliterate the economy of the EU. What? I'll give you a couple things here. What happened in 2008? The stock market went down to like 6,000. right? The economy was obliterated. Homes were worth nothing. And what did the super rich do? They came in on the fire sale and they bought it all for nothing, right? This home was worth $600,000. Now it's worth 300. They come in and buy all the $300,000 homes. Oh, these stocks are worth 40, 20,000, whatever. Now it's only worth six. They come in and buy up all the stocks because they're the ones with the money. Everybody else is broke. What do? You create a fire sale and you're the only one that has the money and you buy everything. And then 5 years, 6 years, 7 years later, when the value goes up, you put all of the small businesses out of business. All the homeowners had to sell their homes and you own everything. You smash the economy to pieces so that the value of assets is virtually pennies. And then you buy everything for pennies on the dollar. Didn't that they do that in 2008? What happened to COVID? COVID, we're doing lockdowns and everybody panicked and the market smashed to pieces. The market just obliterated. After the market got obliterated, what did they do? The CARES Act. They came in and they threw 6 trillion, 7, 9 trillion, whatever it is, into the economy. I mean, into the market, right? Into the market, into the hands of corporations. Whoop! The market whoop back up again. They drove the market down to nothing and they bought everything on a fire sale. And then the government came in and threw $6 trillion into the market. It piled back up. But if you think about this, if the government on a given week just threw $6 trillion into the market, you would get unlimited inflation and it would just destroy everything. So you got to shut the market. You got to shut the economy down, don't you? If you're going to put that kind of liquidity into the market in that short a period, it's going to. I mean, inflation is going to go crazy. So you got to shut the market down, don't you? You got to shut the economy down completely to allow yourself to do that. Gee, how would we shut the economy down? The whole all over the world, so I could throw $6 trillion in. Because remember, they're dollars, they're the world's reserve currency. I know we'll do lockdowns. So you do a lockdown, you and one I mean, if you were really a conspiracy theory, you could make an argument, then you could go backwards to COVID, the whole COVID thing, and say, but I don't know, I'm not even going there. I'm just saying if you're going to put $6 trillion of liquidity, inject that into the economy almost instantly. You got to shut the economy down so it doesn't leak out and you don't have mass inflation. For instance, lockdowns. You lock everybody down for several months. Boom, inject the liquidity, save the market. But remember, the market went to rock bottom prices. You bought everything out at rock bottom prices. You open it back up. You let the market start to wake again. The problem is the people are going to have inflation leaking in for the foreseeable future, and we're the ones that got to eat the inflation because they made money. So instead of the inflation hitting all at once, which they knew wouldn't work, it just leaks in and keeps leaking and keeps leaking and keeps leaking, and we just have to deal with it. Now, what are they going to do? I don't see in a lot of ways how the so-called markets and things like that in the U.S. and the U.S. economy really will recover from this. People are going to run from the dollar like it's like it's got the plague. People are not going to trust the U.S. market. They're going to see instability. They don't know what the hell's happening. Trump now has said, "I'm going to put the tariffs on hold for 90 days, but they might come back." That creates more instability. Less people want to put money into the U.S. Nobody wants to come to the U.S., build anything, whatever, right? And so it's going to have a detrimental effect. Think about this. It's going to have the opposite effect of what Donald Trump said he wanted, right? He wanted money to capital to flow in, build industry to flow in, but this is going to have the opposite effect, isn't it? So here's what I have to ask you. Do you believe he's telling you the truth? That even though any idiot could figure out that what he's going to do is going to have the opposite effect of industrializing and strengthen our economy, that's what he's telling you. Something that any idiot could look at and say, that ain't going to happen. The opposite's going to happen. So do you believe he really believes, and the people around him really believe, that something that you and I can figure out ain't going to happen, they really believe it's going to happen? I don't think they do. We know the opposite is going to happen, and so does he. And might I add, if they're taking an action, hey, 90 more days of instability, and then we'll probably do it again. And they know that action is going to screw the economy. That means that's the intent. That the outcome you see signals the intent. Do you understand what I'm saying? If they're not stupid and you want to know why they are doing this, all you have to do is look at the outcome and say, whatever the outcome is why they were doing it. Not why are they telling me that the opposite of what everybody knows is going to happen is going to happen. Why are they saying it? Everybody knows. If I jump off a building, why did you jump off that building, Garland? Because I want to live a long life. But anybody can figure out that jumping off that building, you're going to die instantly. No, no, no. I wonder why Garland jumped off that building in order to get a long life. Everybody knows it's going to get. No, you idiot. If I jumped off the building, it's because I want to die. And I know I'm going to die or I'm completely nuts. But I'm not completely nuts, am I? You know I'm not completely nuts. So if I jump off a building, first of all, I was thrown off. I ain't jumping, but I'm just saying for the sake of this analogy, if I jump off a building and splat on the ground, you can pretty much deduce the reason I jumped off that building was because I wanted to die. Right? If I say it was that I jumped off the building to live a long life, you're going to say, what kind of idiot would believe that? I say that about this. Hey, we're doing this to bring back industry. What the hell kind of idiot would believe that? When you know and I know and they know it won't bring back industry. What's it going to do? It's going to splat our economy. Well, clearly that's why they're doing it. That's why they're doing it. Nordstream. Do you think they blew up Nordstream because they wanted to make the German economy grow, or they made it the European economy grow? No, they nuked the European economy first. For whatever reason, the European economy had to get nuked first. And now they're nuking ours. That's what they're doing. That's Trump's job. That's what I think. You can tell me I'm wrong. I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe I am wrong, and maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But I'm going to go with the simplest method of deduction, and that is what is it? Occam's razor. The simplest, most obvious answer is probably the right answer. The simplest, most obvious answer is if a bunch of people who understand how international economics work take an action that's going to destroy a country economically or a region or a block, that must be why they did it. That's the whole point here, that we're standing on the top floor of building 7 and we're looking out the window and they're going to blow building 7 or whatever. And we're like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you planting that dynamite down there? And they're like, because we want to make sure building 7 is safe. Yeah, but you're planting it all around the edges of the building. I mean, if that goes off, we'll all be killed. Nah, trust me, we're putting thermite, we're putting dynamite, we're putting everything we can that blows up all around the bottom pillars of this building because we want the building to stay up and be safe. And then we're supposed to be standing on the top floor of building 7 looking at each other like these people are idiots. They're planting dynamite to save the building. No! You're the idiot if you think they're planting dynamite to save the building. The only one thing dynamite's going to do is blow the building up, right? That's my analogy here. Stop believing that they're stupid and they don't know what they're doing and they can't figure out the results of their actions. Go with this. They're smart and they know exactly the results of their actions, which means they're evil, which means we're getting Nordstreamed. That's what's happening. That's the direction things are going. I'm sorry. You might not like it, but it is what it is. Thanks a lot, everybody. Here's what I'm going to do. We have some people who have done these super chats. So let's hit the super chat, see what we get. I love super chats. G watching Z handling Trump. Putin starts to look more like the man Malcolm X was talking about during slavery, who used to ask, Master, we sick. Look, the Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians have been around for a long time. Don't underestimate them. So what I'll say about President Putin and President Lavrov is they have played their hand incredibly well. This whole time they played their hand incredibly well. And I see the Russians kind of stringing this thing out as long as possible. They're, making the U.S. think they want a deal, they on again, off again. They're got like a fish. They got the hook in their mouth and they're yanking them along as long as they can. I think the Russians are doing a brilliant job of stringing the Americans along. I think they're biding themselves time, knowing that the longer this thing goes on, the more they're going to bash Ukraine to pieces, and Ukraine's not going to be able to fight. I think the Russians' time is on their side. So if time is on your side, right? Time's on your side. What weapon are you going to use? Time. I think the Russians are going to outlast everybody here. So I think what they're doing is brilliant. I'm not underestimating the Russians, brother. They're pretty sharp leaders. So let's see. Up next, let's go with Alex says, I love Garland's rambling. I even prefer over some interviews. Why, thank you. I really enjoyed rambling myself. I'm going to be traveling next week, so I'll be rambling from a different location, but the background will be different. All right, let's go. How are you going to refinance a $9.2 trillion debt in 2025 when countries are already dumping our treasury bonds? I think that they ain't worried about that. That they're just going to let the economy crash. They have no plans of refinancing a pan or anything. That's probably why they're just going to crash everything. Guess what? It's like this. The owners and controllers of global financialized capital, I like that term. Shahid Bolson coined it, I think, and I like to use it. They don't see the U.S. as anything other than a zone of opportunity. And it's not a good opportunity anymore for them economically, so they could care less. They could care less about that $9.2 trillion debt. They'll run us in the hole. They'll print some money and increase what do you call it? The Pentagon budget, increase inflation. They could care less. They could care less. I think they got a plan, and the plan is that to crash the economy, and that'll give them an excuse for not being able to pay it. Sorry, guys, the economy's crashed. I wish I could help you out. Let's see. How about we go to named my taco? Thank you, Garland. The elites don't care if the reasoning is sound. They're evil. Don't play the game, play the man. And action is louder than words. Thank you very much. Named my taco. Awesome. All right. Let's go with I wish I knew what the hell that was. Eurasia will take over from Greece to Japan. Those are 7 to 8,000 year old civilizations, better than the 200-year-old proposition nation. You are correct. You are correct. These countries have got time on their hands and they're in no rush. Look, we're like, oh, the Chinese are going to. The U.S. understands that China can handle this and we can't, which is exactly. So they're just decoupling from China. The U.S., the ruling elite in the United States is going to decouple from China. Oh, sorry, we're not going to do business with China anymore. And the American people just have to suck it up and suffer. That's it. They can care less. We're going to be like, hey, we're suffering. They're going to be like, yeah, excuse me, but you have to find somebody who gives a crap because we don't. They decided to do that. And then we got to suffer. And that's just the way it is. Now, will Americans revolt? Good luck with that. Good luck with that. You know what Americans will do? They'll give us our next enemies. They'll say, oh, China's evil and they did it. And Americans will go, okay, China's evil and they did it to us. We never see that the ruling elite are the ones that do that. They'll blame somebody in another country, the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians. They'll give us somebody to blame and we'll never blame the people right under our own noses who are screwing us. Man, that has to be nice to be a member of the ruling elite, to have suckers like that. Garland, funny as a mofo. Thank you there, Mark. Appreciate that. What else we got? What else do we got? Do we have anyone else? Let's check Rockfin. All right. Or the Rockfin. Dave Burt says, thanks, Garland, for the comment and analysis. Good stuff. Dave says, explanations. Logic should not be multiplied beyond necessity. Something like Occam's razor. Simplest explanation is probably true. All right. And I'm going to look on Rumble to see if I got any Rumble rants. Woo, we got Rumble rants. We got Albu Kid says, just tune in and I'm feeling a sense of dread between 9/11 and '08. Yikes. Agree it's intentional. Thank you very, very much. Thanks a lot, everybody. All right. All right. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. So here's where we're going to go. Wow, 939 people. That's awesome. I probably won't do anything tomorrow. I'll be traveling. And then Monday, I'll get started. Next week may be a little hard to do interviews, but I'm going to do some stuff from a remote location. I'll be in the bunker. No, actually, I'll just be in a remote week, away for a week. But catch up with me, and I'll probably be doing a lot of rambling next week. Um, but thanks a lot, everybody. Share this on all your social media platforms. You see everything going across the bottom. Follow me on Rockfin and Rumble and Telegram, stuff like that. If you can afford Patreon, that's great. If you can afford buy me a coffee, is always a great way, or PayPal. And guess what? I even got a PO box there. Every now and then, I've had a bunch of people say, "Hey, Garland, I don't trust the man. I'm not sending my money on the man's plan. I'd mail you something." So guess what? If you see it's going along now, of course, follow me on Substack. I got a PO box. That's right. There you go. Mail, P.O. Box 32, Glen Burnie, 21061. So if you want to send me some mail, send me an envelope, send me whatever, send it there. Send something, your writings, anything, send it there. How's that? Isn't that awesome? Send me a check for $1 billion or $1 or nothing. It doesn't matter. You got my P.O. Box. Share this on all your social media platforms. Peace. I'm out.